Good to see everyone here. Um, Very good to see everyone. So what I'm going to do here, um, or what we're doing here, good to have everyone here. This is our natural remedies session. What we're doing is, as we have usually done, we're doing these. We're looking at natural remedies, and today we're looking especially at vulnerary remedies. I always thought it was pronounced vulnerary until I actually until today, uh, or well, until I did this and put this together, and then I realized, oh, it's vulnerary, not vulnerary. So, um, yeah, comes from the Latin vulnus. We'll talk a bit about that. Oh, I do want to also say to those of y'all who are here for the first time, it's good to see you. I am streaming this on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. If you're watching this on YouTube, my channel is the King's Bard. The King's Bard, and that's also my Facebook page and also my Twitch username. I forget what you call that in Twitch, but anyway, if you're watching via YouTube, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. If you're watching via Facebook, like the post, like my page as well, and share it. Get it out there as much as you can. This is a really, really important thing. I really, really want to get this stuff out there. I know that we have some others, some other things that are live right now tonight, and I appreciate everyone who's coming out and watching it. I know that things are not the same, and that's okay. Anyway, I want to kind of dispense with all of those, how shall I say, with all those kind of the maintenance stuff, and dive right into it and turn our eyes to Him who is our strength and the one who provided for all of these remedies Himself. So that being said, let's not delay any further. Also, I'm a little late, so I apologize for that. At any rate, let's go ahead and bow our heads for a word of prayer, and we shall dive right on in to Vulnerary Remedies. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for everything that you have done, for your grace, for your mercy, for your love, and for your infinite kindness. Father, I just ask right now that you would please be with us, that you would please fill us with your Spirit, that you would grant us your grace, and that you would speak, Lord, that you would hide me behind the shadow of the cross, that Jesus would be heard and uplifted. Thank you so much. In Jesus' precious name we pray and ask these things, and thank you. Amen. I want to say, if you have a question or anything like that at any point, if you're watching via the stream, you can leave those questions in the chat, and I will answer them as soon as I see them, which I will see them now. They're on this side of my screen here. And if you're in the Zoom, of course, you can always ask them at any point. So without further ado, let's dive right on in. With a disclaimer, now this one especially, the information in this presentation is for educational purposes only. It's not intended for the diagnosis, treatment, prevention, or cure of any disease. If you want to make any changes to your lifestyle, implement any natural remedies or regimen, or make any changes to a regimen you may already be under, please consult with a qualified physician. And especially I want to say this when it comes to vulneraries, because vulneraries, because vulnerary herbs are and other remedies. Let me adjust this. Sorry. Vulnerary remedies have to do with the healing of wounds and broken bones and things like that. And so, before we dive into that, I want to say, make sure that you have the appropriate medical attention of that before you do that. So I want to make sure that that's thrown out there as well, especially if it's something really severe. I wouldn't rely on these. I would rely on conventional medicine in that regard. So relevant terms and information. An infusion, as usual, we have that here. It's a preparation where boiling water is poured over herbs. A standard ratio for an infusion is 1 teaspoon of dried herb or 2 teaspoons of fresh herb to 1 cup of water. It's really best if you do that. It's best if you leave it steeping for at least 20 minutes. Um, a poultice, on the other hand, is a preparation where an herb or other natural substance is made into a thick paste, usually through crushing it or powdering it and mixing it with a hot water. And then it's either wrapped in gauze before being applied, or it's applied directly to the skin. Um, an infused oil is a preparation where herbs are steeped in oil for around 2 weeks, and then you would apply it much the way that you would apply a lotion or something like that. You would just rub it in. A salve, a lotion, a balm, or an ointment is a preparation where an infused oil has been mixed with melted wax, usually beeswax, in different ratios. So that's what these things are, and so these are the relevant terms that we're looking at. So, what is a vulnerary? Well, a vulnerary herb, as I mentioned already, vulnerary remedy is an herb or other natural remedy that is particularly useful in helping wounds to heal. These are topical in usage. They're applied to the skin. And some remedies may actually help broken bones to heal in cases. There are herbs that are known for that or have a reputation for that. One in particular that I can think of is Comfrey. I think it's even known as knit bone, and we'll talk about Comfrey here as well. Speaking of which, let's look at these herbs. So we have Comfrey, Calendula, Plantain, Yarrow, St. Johns Wort, and Aloe Vera. Now these are just a few vulnerary herbs. There are a lot more of them, but these are just a few. There's a lot more of them, but I think that these herbs in particular are the most useful ones, the most common ones. So we'll go over each of them, and that's what we shall do. Again, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to ask them in the stream chat, or if you're in the Zoom call, then you can just ask them directly. So Comfrey. Let's look at Comfrey first. This herb is very commonly used for wounds and broken bones. In fact, it's one of its common names, one of the names that you'll hear it called pretty often is, in older books and things like that, they will call it Comfrey. They'll also call it knit bone because it has a reputation, especially for broken bones and internal injuries. That being said, again, be cautious with this. You want to make sure that you get the appropriate care with this kind of a thing. This is not to be used in place of medical care. But Comfrey root is usually the major part of the plant that's used, although I have seen the herb itself recommended. I don't know for sure, but I do know that I have seen it recommended. I don't know. From what I've seen, the root is considered to be the most powerful part of this plant, and so the root is usually used. Most often, Comfrey is prepared as a poultice, but sometimes I have seen it recommended as a salve, so or a lotion or an ointment, whatever you want to call it, whatever that is appropriate for it being called. It's sometimes prepared as a salve as well. I've seen it usually recommended as a poultice. And again, I tend to say when it comes to natural remedies, if it's you want it as close to the least processed state as you can get. So, and that's what a poultice is in this case. So a poultice, again, you're going to look at something that is a poultice is just the straight up crushed plant material, the crushed root or the powdered root that has then been mixed with hot water and then applied to the skins in some way. So I would recommend a poultice for this, but a salve also works, and it's great for preparation. It's great for preserving it, but again, it's more processed, and so you have a balance there. It's not going to be as useful as if you have a poultice, but it's a balance. You'll have more use of it. I do want to say, do not use Comfrey internally, and don't use it externally for longer than 2 weeks consecutively, because it has compounds which can negatively affect the liver with long-term uses, can cause liver damage with long-term usage. So 2 weeks is about as long as you should use it. Longer than that's not really wise. You're doing something that, you're putting your liver at risk, and that's not really an organ you want to put at risk. So it's, again, it's not something that, if you use it like once or twice, it's not a big deal. Long-term usage is what you're going to be looking at. Now, Comfrey is a very, very powerful remedy. It's very, very strong, and I don't normally include strong ones, but it is very strong, and so it is very useful, and it's extremely common in its recommendations, and so I felt like I should put it in. Calendula, another very common herb in these uses. It is actually just the common marigold, or the pot marigold. It is, it's just calendula. Usually the petals are used, and they're also edible, by the way. And it's usually the petals that are used. So if you go to a store or something like that, you go to Lassen's or another herb store or something like that, and you look for calendula, you might see it in a jar, and in the jar you'll see just a bunch of petals in a jar, and this is why, because it's the petals in particular that you're looking for. So the petals here are what you're looking at. That's what is going to have the most uses. Most often, calendula is prepared as an infused oil, sometimes also as a salve. The petals are edible, but they're not vulnerary that way. They're just a nice garnish to a salad or something like that. They are quite nice. You can get them in certain places, or at least I have gotten them in Lassen's. I don't know about other places, but I have gotten them there. So calendula is quite nice as an herb. It's very useful. I would recommend that you buy it at the store or you grow it yourself. Don't harvest it from places where there may be pesticides or herbicides that are used. So just, be cautious of that, because that is something that's very, very real. Yes, pot marigold. Thank you, Susie, for putting that in the chat there. In the Zoom chat, these scientific names and such. Yes, pot marigold or calendula. That is what we are looking at. Thank you. Now, plantain is the next one we're looking at. No, we're not talking about the banana. That is a common mistake, and it comes from an entirely different thing. Plantain, this plant, Plantago officinalis, has been called plantain since the English language was a thing. The banana plantain got its name as a result of a misunderstanding of Spanish, or from a Spanish person who misunderstood a native South American word, who then and the Spaniard was then speaking to an English person, and it got all mixed up, and so this is what you get. Plantains, or Plantago officinalis, is a common garden weed. It's most often that you see the leaves used in particular. It's about as hardy as dandelion when it comes to growth. It is very, very hardy. It grows almost anywhere. I haven't seen it growing from cracks in the sidewalk like dandelion, but it grows in about the same environments as dandelion will. It is most often used as a poultice, but it is also sometimes used as a salve. And as I said before, it is very, very old in its usage, and it was extremely common, very well known as a medicinal herb. In fact, you can actually find references to plantain in some of the oldest works in the English language. In fact, there's a little poem in Anglo-Saxon that translates to something along the lines of, you allow yourself to be run over by carts and trampled by horses so that you might help us in our time of need, for the same type of wounds. And no, Susie, it's not the banana. Not the banana. It is something else. It's this herb here. It doesn't grow bananas. But In fact, plantain was so well known even to our ancestors here in America that the Native Americans, well, we brought it with us from over in Europe over to here in America, and Native Americans called it white man's footprint because we planted it everywhere. And so everywhere they found it growing, they knew, white men had been there. Europeans had been there. So it's something that is it's something that has been around for quite a long time, and its uses have been well known. I do want to say that once again, just like with Calendula, you want to only harvest from places that you know that there have been no pesticides or herbicides used, just because those aren't good. And also don't harvest it from roadsides either, because you don't want any exhaust fumes or anything like that on there. It's not good. So plantain is one of the, in my personal opinion, it's very useful as a vulnerary. It's it has a reputation for that, and it's been used for a long time. It's especially used as a poultice. And in conjunction with one of the other herbs that we have here, yarrow. So we're going to talk about that one as well. We'll get there in a bit. Well, I forgot which order I'd put these in. It is yarrow that we're talking about next. Yarrow, Achillea millefolium, is a very, very powerful herb, and it's got a very, very powerful, very, very well-known vulnerary reputation. It's not as well-known or as well-used per se as Comfrey for healing the wounds themselves, but it does still have powerful vulnerary and especially antiseptic properties as well. And it's especially useful for external wounds. It actually got its name, Achillea millefolium, from the Greek hero Achilles, who was said to use it to treat his soldiers' wounds when he was going up against the Trojans. And it's one of the, it's a very, very well-known herb, and again, it goes all the way back to ancient times for its uses and its known uses. It is also commonly used. The leaves are primarily what are used, just like plantain, and just like plantain, it's commonly used as a poultice. In fact, they're often paired together because plantain doesn't have the antiseptic properties that yarrow has, but yarrow is not as strong a vulnerary as plantain is, and so you really put them together and make one poultice out of it, and then you can have some really, really nice and powerful effects. I do want to say as well that it is used as it is not only used as a poultice, it's also used as an infusion, which you would make an infusion out of it, and then you wash the area with it. You wash the affected area. But but I have also seen it made as a salve. Same thing with plantain. I've seen it made into a salve. It's not very common. It's usually used as a poultice, but sometimes you may want to preserve certain properties of it, and so it can be used as a salve. There. So that's yarrow. Now I do want to pause, I think, for a moment or two. Are there any questions from either the Zoom or from the stream? Yes, thank you, Susie. It is a flowering plant in the Asteraceae family. It is that is the sunflower or dandelion or daisy family. Yeah. Are there any questions? If someone is wanting to speak in the Zoom, they may be muted. So you might want to check that in case you're speaking. And if not, then we can continue right on. Okay. Alrighty, and I'm not seeing any questions in the stream chat either, so we shall move right along. Okay. St. Johns Wort. This herb is a little less well known for its vulnerary properties, although it's still somewhat well known. but it is most well known for helping with depression. It is an herbal antidepressant, um, so it has been known for that, but it is also in the herbalist community, at least, fairly well known as vulnerary. The herb itself is what's used, especially the flowers, as you see here, rather than the root or any other part of the plant. So it's the herb, the upper part of the plant, so the leaves, the stem, the flowers, and all such. That's what's used instead of the root. And most often it's used as an infused oil, but it is often also used as a salve. The infused oil of St. Johns Wort is a very, very bright red color, which you wouldn't expect from, yellow flowers. But it's a very, very bright red, a very, very crisp and strong, vibrant red. Something you would expect out of a red bell pepper or paprika or some other, bright red plant. But it is actually quite strong, and it's a very, very, very well known for that reason, that that you've got a good infused oil when when you have it that bright red color. It is in order to preserve the infused oil, it's often made into a salve as well. So, again, it's something that could be pretty useful, but not necessarily. Or it's something that's also fairly useful. Again, it's mostly used for external wounds, superficial wounds, things like that. It's not, unlike Comfrey, it's used mostly for just superficial injuries, things like that. It's not really used for anything terribly deep. Whereas Comfrey is usually used for internal as well as external injuries or deep injuries. And the last herb that we're going to look at tonight is aloe vera. This is probably the single most well-known herb on this list. It is... yes, you're right, Susie. There are side effects for St. John's wort, but mostly internal side effects. Although it can make, from what I understand, it can make your skin more sensitive to sunlight, but that may be only for internal use. I'm not sure. Aloe vera is perhaps the most well-known herb on the list, as I said. It is extremely useful, especially for burns, but it is also useful on healing superficial remedies. Once again, it's not something that's for terribly deep. It's mostly for wounds that have, if you've had a deep wound that's been closed over already, it's already, it's not infected or anything like that. It's closed up. It's great for scarring. It's great for helping the wound to heal fully. It is also great for again, for burns. The studies have shown that it actually stimulates the division of skin cells so that your skin cells will actually be dividing more. It actually regenerates your skin, unlike a lot of other things out there. Studies have shown that aloe vera is actually useful up to for burns up to the 2nd degree. And it's actually as useful, at least the studies found, that it was as effective for up to 2nd degree burns as some prescription medications. So now again, if you have a 3rd degree burn, that is not something you put aloe vera on. That is something you immediately go to the hospital for. And even for a 2nd degree burn, you should definitely go to or even a 1st degree. You might want to get it checked out, especially if there are signs of infection, things like that. So I just want to throw that out there. There's a lot of misconceptions about burns. Please, please, please get them looked at before you do anything. The fresh gel is what you use, of course, as you see here in this picture. The fresh gel is what you use. It's scraped out of the leaf, and that's the best, just using it fresh. You don't need to use it as a salve. You don't need to use it as an ointment. It is an ointment. It's amazing. You just use it right out of the leaf, and that's the best way that you can possibly use it. I have seen some herbalists recommend that you actually cook the salve down, or cook the gel down into an actual salve-like ointment to preserve it, but yeah, you don't really need that. You just have a plant growing and just harvest a leaf when you need it. So it's this is really just getting it fresh like this is by far the best way to do it. Um, I want to say, when it comes to burns, do not put anything on your burns until you have done first aid on it. For first degree burns. Okay, first degree burns should be cooled first under cool running water until the pain subsides before you put on anything, and don't use oil-based remedies at all. Don't use salves, don't use lotions, don't use ointments. Mustard is a common recommendation. I don't recommend it because mustard is a caustic substance. It is a common folk remedy type of thing. I've even used it myself. I think that it's probably much better if you use something like aloe vera. Aloe is known to help with sunburns and things like that. So, and sunburn is the equivalent of a first degree burn. So, it is. Actually, not just the equivalent. It is counted as a first degree burn. So, it helps with sunburn relief. It can help with relief for first degree burns as well, and it can also help facilitate healing with second degree burns. But I do want to say once again, don't put it on immediately after the burn. Run if it's a first degree burn, run cool running water over it for as long as you need to until the pain subsides before you do anything else with it. And even then, talk to your doctor. Make sure that you know what's going on. And if there's any signs of infection, anything like that, immediately go to your doctor, schedule an appointment, because it's just, you don't want to deal with that. So yes, this is really important, significant, really significant. Aloe vera, though, overall is an amazing herb, absolutely fantastic. I don't know of another herb that has a reputation. There are very few herbs that have as strong or as amazing a reputation as aloe vera does, and that actually deserve it. Most of the herbs that deserve a fantastic reputation don't have one, and most of the ones that have a fantastic reputation don't deserve it. But aloe vera is one of those that it absolutely does deserve its reputation. It is an amazing herb. Absolutely amazing. I would not recommend its internal use because the latex, which is something that you would find right about here on the leaf, is just a little bit of yellow on the inside of the leaf, and that is a cathartic. Now, in the herbal world, a cathartic means that it is a purgative. That means that you will be sitting uncomfortably on the pot for quite some time. It is while you're vacating certain areas of your intestinal system. It is extremely powerful. Now, most products that have aloe vera gel that's used internally that you buy in the store don't have that. But I don't recommend getting those anyway. You don't need them. They're not hydrating in any more than just regular old water. And you don't have to. There's nothing inherently wrong, but with those products are better. Don't juice this at home because you will be uncomfortable for several hours. Don't juice this at home, please. So be careful. But yes, aloe vera is amazing. It's unparalleled in its ability to help the skin to heal. It's just unparalleled in that. Absolutely amazing. But now let's step away from the world of herbs as we finish off with hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy is a very unique situation because once again, in most cases of hydrotherapy, there's nothing that's strictly vulnerary. That is, there's nothing that hydrotherapy has naturally or inherently that stimulates the body to help heal these wounds or anything like that. But it does have applications that do help with healing and in some cases accelerate it. For example, local contrast applications, in particular hot and cold, alternating hot and cold, as you can see in this lovely graphic I got here off of Google. um, Local contrast applications are the most useful, not general contrast applications now. We are talking about local applications because local applications are a general application is going to affect the whole system. A local application, on the other hand, is going to be targeted and get the results you want in the specific area that you want it in. I recall the story of an individual who was here in Bakersfield actually some years ago. I heard this story later from his sister, who was my hydrotherapy teacher when I was up north in up in Northern California going to school, learning about hydrotherapy, learning about healthy lifestyle and how to teach that to other people. Um, he was a young man, I think in his 30s at this point, and he had decided, oh, I'm going to go out quad biking up in Tehachapi Mountains, and so he went up there, and he was doing riding a quad with his friends and whatnot, and he fell, and he broke his back, and of course, that's something that's really, really not good. It's Yeah, the doctors told him he would never walk again. But he knew his parents were well versed in natural remedies, and he thought, well, I'll go up to them and see what they can do. Of course, he couldn't walk at this time. He was, his back was broken. So he was taken up to his parents, and what they did was a very interesting system. Of course, because it was his back. So you want to, it's not something you can just, it's not like a limb, right, where you can just stick it in a tub of water or something. This is his back. So what did they do? Well, they hooked him up to some kind of almost a crane kind of a thing, and they had a bathtub that was, let's see if I can find there we go. They had a bathtub here, right, and then they had him suspended over the bathtub and lowered him back first into it. And it was water that in the bathtub was full of water that was as hot as he could stand it. It wasn't scalding hot, clearly, it was safe, but it was water that was as hot as he could stand it. And from the story that I was told, he was immersed into it, and he just started crying because it felt so good. And then they sat him up in that, and what they did then was they did, as I have recommended here, injuries on the torso. They had alternating hot and cold jets that they sprayed up and down his spine, up and down his spine. First hot, up and down his spine, then cold, up and down his spine, and alternating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, up and down his spine. And in about, I think it was 6 months later, he walked into the doctor's office, and the doctors were so stunned. They said, we have no idea how you're doing this, right? It wasn't as though he was like walking freely. He still had some issues from what I understand. But he was walking, at least he was walking. And the doctors were so stunned that they said, you know what? We have no idea how you're doing this, but whatever it is you're doing, keep doing it. And so, he has recovered entirely from that injury. He's able to walk as well as he could before, from everything that I understand. So, it's a fantastic. I mean, water hydrotherapy, or hydropathy, as it is also often called in older literature, is one of the single most useful and powerful remedies for healing that you could possibly get. You would not be able to get that with even herbs. As much as I love herbs and as much as I am well versed with them, hydrotherapy is way more powerful than even herbs. Which, of course, you could not get that kind of a thing with herbs. It's just, yeah. Hydrotherapy is amazing. So when it comes to injuries on the limbs, what you want to do is you immerse the affected limb in alternating hot and cold water for about a minute each. And so hot and then cold. Hot and then cold. Hot and then cold. Back and forth for about a minute each. and that's on the limbs or on the digits. For injuries on the torso, you're going to want to look at hot and cold jets aimed at the affected area, applied for at least 30 seconds each. The reason that the time is a little bit shorter here is because the percussive effect of the jet will amplify the effects of the heat and the cool, the heat and the cold that are there, especially the cold. It really amplifies the cold. But the percussive nature also really has a powerful effect, so it doesn't need to be as long. But you do want to do it a little bit more and more frequently, and for a longer duration, for longer repetitions, I should say. So more repetitions of this thing. So the temperatures for all of these should be as hot and as cold as are comfortable and tolerable. You want to make sure that it is something that, you want to make sure that it's safe, right? You don't want to scald a person. You don't want to, give them hypothermia. But you do want to make sure that these temperatures are comfortable for them, but also as hot as they can stand it and as cold as they can stand it. Because that's the only way you're going to get real results, especially for stronger injuries. It doesn't, for smaller injuries, for things that are superficial, like cuts and things like that, I wouldn't even, I wouldn't use these on open wounds, by the way. I just wouldn't. If it's open wounds, it is no good. You need to let it close and bind up before anything. And I wouldn't even, honestly, you could do just straight up a compress, but in this case, in those cases, again, for smaller wounds, I would just say a poultice at most. Usually just let the body heal for really small things. But for wounds that are more serious, once they've closed up, hot and cold applied to the affected area is really, really useful. I do want to say as well that this is something that if you have injuries in other areas of the body, such as on the neck, on the head, or in the pelvic region, that's those regions you should really, really get medical attention, because those are some really serious areas. And of course, center of the chest as well. You want to be very careful with injuries of those natures, because those are very near vital organs or important organs, and so you want to get at least you want to get proper medical attention first, and then, in addition to whatever else they're doing, talk to them about this kind of a thing. Talk to them about natural remedies. Say, hey, I'd like to try doing this. Is this something? I remember when I had this injury, I went into the emergency room. I got, the proper antibiotics. I got it irrigated and cleaned out. I got it stitched up. And then I asked, so, hey, would this be okay? I asked about natural pain relief. And I asked about, I believe I also asked about poultices as well. And they said, oh, well, I mean, it can't hurt. They did tell, when I asked about the pain relief, they said, oh yeah, that'll definitely work. Because I know enough about natural pain relief that I wanted to do it. I tried it, and I'm not trying it again. I didn't like the way that it obstructed my brain's ability to function, so I'm not trying it again. And so I would, I think that I can honestly say, as an herbalist, when it comes to pain relief, take the stuff that they have for you, or that they recommend for you, that are in the pills, because in that case, it's either that or your brain is going to be impaired. The other stuff doesn't impair your brain, so at least as nearly as much. So this I would recommend for that, avoiding the more natural stuff in that case, at least herbs and such. I don't know of any hydrotherapy that relieves pain, except for that would relieve this sort of pain, injury pain. At any rate, that being said, that's about. I believe that's everything that I have. Are there any questions, either from the Facebook or from the stream chat or from the Zoom? Yes.
I heard I heard not too long ago a couple of natural remedies. I want to know what you know about. What do you know about them? One is for a bad cut. Let's say you're working in the kitchen and you get a bad cut. This was my sister-in-law. She said that coffee, like coffee grounds, will stop that bleeding right away. I guess it coagulates or something. Have you heard of this?
Well, I haven't specifically heard of that, but coffee does contain a large number of tannins, which are styptics. And so, yes, I'm not surprised. Coffee it would work. Tea would work as well. Black tea.
Like a tea bag. Oh,
Yeah.
Black tea. Open the bag. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think she was basically focusing on like accidents in the kitchen, and so there was this one about burns too, and she said you can crack an egg and put that egg right on that burn, and it stops the burning.
I would just use water. It's less expensive and more likely to work and less likely. I mean, I've heard that too, but they also recommend, they've also recommended mustard or butter or things like that, and you don't want to do those. So, water is cheaper. It's easier. I mean, all you have to do is just stick your arm under cool running water for a period of time until it stops hurting. So.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't use ice, by the way. Do not use ice on your burns.
Yeah, that stick to your skin, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And on top of that, what happens is it actually boils down to hydrotherapy principles once again too. Besides that, and what will happen is you will, because what cold does is it stimulates a strong reaction in your body. Your body goes, oh, I don't like that, and so blood rushes to the area. But of course, with a burn, you've already got blood rushing to the area, and so what happens is there's an initial pushback of, let's not take that, let's not, because the body doesn't want the blood to get too cold. So there's an initial pushback, but very quickly there is, we need to take blood to this area. We need to warm it up so it doesn't freeze off, and there's even more blood that comes in really strong reaction. And so, yeah, don't use super cold on a burn. What you want to use instead is cool or even tepid water.
Mm-hmm. Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
All righty. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. I do see your comments as well. There's Susie in the chat. Pepper stops bleeding as well. I would imagine so. It does also have tannins and styptic properties, but its essential oil content is very irritating and is of a nature that is very irritating. And so I wouldn't recommend it. You could use, some people will use cinnamon as well, but cinnamon is, it would really, really burn. And I suppose you could say it's disinfecting, and it would be, but it's far, far better to use, I mean, coffee or tea would work, but
in an emergency case, it saves lives. Black pepper.
That's true. That is true. Black pepper would do that. I personally would recommend something more along the lines of, what would it be? Oak bark, which is full of tannins. There are styptic powder recipes. I'll have to look at those. I may do a whole thing on styptics, just because they're useful. Yeah. For stopping bleeding and such. Styptic powders are usually used. They're more often used in veterinary medicine these days, but styptic powders may be useful. Alrighty. I'm not seeing any questions or comments in the stream chat. So that being said, any final thoughts, comments, questions?
Oh, I wanted to mention to you about last time when we were talking about the pastor's daughter in India.
Oh, yes.
The one that, he haven't sent me the paper of she had hyper or the hypo, but I have good news. They took her off of the thyroid pills, but now they put her on high blood pressure pills. So maybe she did have the hyper because her heart rate was racing. Her blood pressure was high. So they took her off one medication and they put her on another medication. But you know what's good for it? Like, we talked about seaweed. It's good for that,
Yes,
for thyroid.
yes, seaweed would help. I can't make any other recommendations on it unless I know it could be hyperthyroidism, but hyper and hypothyroidism both have very similar symptoms. They can
Right.
they can both manifest as someone being sluggish and having no appetite or something like that. They both manifest that way as well. So um, it is definitely hormonal though. If she's having high blood pressure, then there is definitely something there. Um, the best thing that I know for that is just water. But
Right.
yeah, so yes, so that's interesting. Obviously, I'm not a physician, and I haven't been trained. I am being trained currently in herbal medicine, but that won't be valid here in the United States. So,
Mhm.
but
Interesting.
yeah. So anyway, um, that being said, so I can't really make any recommendations, any comments or such like that on unless I was a qualified medical practitioner who was then able to see her and diagnose her and whatnot. So, but at any rate, uh, and there are some things that I wish that our medical doctors would learn that I'm learning now. So, but anyway, that being said, I don't really want to take up any more time. It is 7:54. So, thank you everyone for your questions and for your comments. If you are watching, once again, if you're watching via the live stream or if you're watching via the recorded video, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The King's Bard, and like the Facebook page as well by the same name, The King's Bard. Also, if you could please share the video. Share the Facebook video on Facebook. If you, don't share the YouTube video because I guess you could, but Facebook typically tends to put down YouTube videos, so just share the Facebook video. And if you're watching via Twitch, well, howdy. Subscribe to my YouTube, like my Facebook page. Get this stuff out there as much as you can. Tell people about this and get it out there. Anyway, thank you very much once again, everybody, and we will go ahead and close out with a word of prayer. So let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your grace and for your mercy. Thank you for your infinite love and for your wonderful kindness. Father, I just ask that you would please be with us now as we go our separate ways. Please keep us, Lord, and anoint us. And I ask that above all other things, Jesus would be lifted up, that we would give him glory in all things, and that we would be made more and more into his image. Thank you again, Lord.
Amen.
In Jesus' name we pray and ask these things. Amen. I want to
Amen.
say that we are not going to be having our Bible study on anymore on Sabbaths or Sacred History Sabbaths, or Sacred History Sabbath School, because we are going to be transitioning back to regular church worship. So I'm working on getting a day when I can do the Bible studies again. I don't know for sure yet. I cannot do Friday nights because there's the orchestra. I can't do Thursdays and I can't do Tuesdays. I can't do Wednesdays. I could do Sundays, but I want to do recording on Sundays. So what I'm wanting to do is recording some videos on sacred history, about 10 minutes or so. For each, we'll looking at events throughout history and how they connect to how God's intervention, how we can see God's intervention in that. And I will also be hopefully looking at some music as well. That being said, That being said, I don't want to keep y'all here anymore. Thank you again, everybody, and I hope to see you next time.